I don't like saying first responder because first responder is so inclusive that it doesn't allow me to break out and go, no, there's fire and there's rescue and there's law enforcement. And every one of those men and women have amazing stories that you need to slow down enough to hear.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 21 of The Squad Room. I'm your host, Garrett Teslaw. Thanks for being with us. If this is your first time listening to the show, The Squad Room is devoted to optimizing the health and wellness of police officers and other first responders around the world. When I talk about health and wellness, I don't just mean physical health and exercise, but health, our wellness, and our mindfulness on top of all of our physical fitness. Basically, any topic that can make us better people, better cops, better husbands, better wives, better fathers, better mothers, etc., etc. I am a active duty patrol sergeant for a sheriff's department in Southern California. I have a little over 10 years on with my department, and I am 38 years old. Just to give you a brief rundown of who I am if you're just tuning in. I've held assignments in a variety of positions, spent most of my time in patrol, but have done community services, which I call the Arts and Crafts Division. Also time in our courts as a bailiff, done gang enforcement, and a graffiti enforcement, a wide variety of stuff. Anyway, on to this show. Our guest today is an amazing guy, Clint Bruce. I got the chance to meet Clint after hearing him speak on Marcus Lutrell's Patriot tour this past fall. Most of you probably know Marcus's name. Marcus is the subject of the movie Lone Survivor and the author of the book that came first. I had never heard of Clint, and he was a last-minute addition to the show, I think. But man, am I glad he was there. His speech was awesome. And I found him in the lobby at intermission, and I just I ambushed him and jumped on the chance to shake his hand and meet him and asked him right then and there if he would come on the show and talk about what his passions are to my audience, obviously law enforcement. He agreed right there on the spot, gave me his assistant's information, and reached out a couple weeks later, and we were able to make this happen. Clint is, among other things, a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He was a member of the Navy football team there while in school. In his senior year, his team made the Aloha Bowl. When Clint graduated as an officer, he was given the very rare opportunity as a member of the military to play in the NFL. Clint played with the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints. And in between those two teams, he went to BUD/S and passed BUD/S and eventually became a SEAL. These days, Clint is retired from active service. He speaks around the country on leadership and related topics, and he also runs a corporate security company in Texas, in addition to chasing his 3 daughters around. Clint's passion project, though, is carrytheload.org, a nonprofit that's devoted to bringing the meaning and purpose back to Memorial Day. They do a lot to involve first responders, so you should check out the website at carrytheload.org. They don't just memorialize military personnel either. They devote a lot of attention to first responders. Clint's a very genuine guy, and I think that comes across in this interview. You know he's legit when Marcus Lutrell says that there's, quote, something special about this guy. That's a hell of an endorsement. We had an introductory phone call a few weeks ago before we recorded this episode. And it was kind of funny because we ended up in this little circle of, thank you for your service. No, thank you for your service. No, seriously, thank you for your service. Your service was more important. No, yours is more. And it just kind of went on. We had to just sort of acknowledge each other's efforts in keeping each other safe and move from there. And I don't think we do enough of that in our society, acknowledging the roles that other people play for us and in keeping us safe. Head over to thesquadroom.net/episode 21 for the show notes for today's episode. There's a great video of a speech he gave at the Naval Academy that I referenced during the show, and I highly recommend checking that out. To sign up for the Squad Room mailing list, text The Squad Room to 44222, and you get signed up for our mailing list right from your phone. You can also do it from our website. We also completed our first contest, a giveaway of an RP Strength Auto template. Freddie Camacho, our guest on episode 19, got me turned on to Renaissance periodization strength training and their diet programs, or maybe a better word is nutrition programs. I don't like the word diet. I've learned a lot from using their templates, and they were cool enough to offer one for giveaway. So congratulations to Eric in Minnesota for winning that prize. Before we get to the interview, I want to thank our sponsors for the episode for today, SP Tactical and the iCombat Active Shooter Training System. If you've listened to the show before, you've heard me talk about iCombat. Now, here's what's cool. If you're headed out to SHOT in a few weeks, you've got to hook up with my buddies Todd and John from SB Tactical for a demo of the iCombat system. Trust me, with giveaways, food, beer, and lead slinger whiskey from the guys at Article 15 being served in the suite, a good time is guaranteed. And you don't want to miss the demos. They'll be doing them inside a suite at the Venetian Hotel, which is attached to the Sands Convention Center. So you can literally stumble over there half sober and check out the system. And since it's not live ammo, you can play with the toys. I mean the guns. Demos are going to be Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 1,200, 1,600 hours each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And on Friday, they're also going to have one at 1,400 hours. They'll be on the show floor passing out invites and information, so if you meet them, make sure you tell them that you listen to the show. Support these guys because they're awesome, and their product is awesomer. That's right, awesomer. I just made up a word. As SHOT approaches, they'll announce more details and a room number on their social media accounts, so follow them on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter at SB Tactical. They have some cool things to show you, and it's going to be a good time as they demo the iCombat system inside of this hotel suite. Now, the iCombat system is not a simulation system for active shooter training. It's a replication system, and because of this, you can take it anywhere, like a suite at the Venetian in Vegas. There's no site prep, no ammo costs, and none of the safety issues that come with live fire or sims training. I hate sims training, and to me, this system has all the benefits and none of the liabilities. Here's a story for you. During Urban Shield 2014, the Boston PD SWAT team organized a multi-agency terror response along with the FBI SWAT team. They conducted a live active shooter training scenario in Boston City Hall inside the mayor's office. That's about as real training and environment as you can get. LAPD recently fielded the system to train all their in-service personnel with active shooter training. LAPD, Boston SWAT, and like I've said before, I've used this system myself in my own department, and I immediately saw the value. It's legit. If you're part of your department's training cadre or just bored of standing on a static line and shooting 5 rounds into a paper target as part of your firearms qual, check out the system at sbtactical.com. They're American-made and veteran-owned. All right, let's get to today's episode with Clint Bruce. Clint Bruce, welcome to the Squad Room. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be on.
You know what? First thing I want people to know about you, there's a lot of things, and we're going to get right to it, but the first thing I want people to know about you is you are indeed a man of your word. Because we met at the Patriot Tour, Marcus Lutrell's speaking event. We met at the Reagan Library stop, which was awesome. And
yeah, absolutely.
I can't recommend that event enough to people. But you were out in the lobby talking to people, shaking hands, taking photographs in the intermission.
And the intermission, over there by the book table and the shirt table.
Yeah, and I totally
ambushed you. And the open door with a nice cool breeze going in. That was probably as important as anything else.
That's true. It was very hot. But you were... I ambushed you and totally introduced myself and said I got a podcast for first responders about living an optimal life. And you were like, when can I be on?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
And so here we are a couple months later. We were able to make it all happen. So thank you for really following through on that. You've got an amazing story, but also some amazing perspective that I think everyone's going to get a lot out of. And I just want to jump right into it. So I've told the people.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, thanks. So I told the people in the introduction a little bit about you, but that just kind of scratches the surface when you read a bio. You went to the Naval Academy, yeah?
I did, yeah.
And graduated in 97, and you were on not only the football team there, but tell them a little bit about your football experience at the Naval Academy.
Well, I would describe my Naval Academy experience as kind of this dance between academic underachievement and athletic overachievement. It was like this great arbitration of being relevant on the football field and trying to be relevant in the classroom. That's a very academically prestigious institution that I was just trying to keep up with some other really brilliant guys. We had a fantastic team. We had we call it the Brotherhood, and the Brotherhood is just kind of this fraternity of men who know what it's like to wear that gold helmet. And it's coming up on Army Navy on December 12th, and I was asked one time, and this is probably the best way I can use to describe Navy football. I was asked one time about one of the greatest rivalries in all sports, and I asked the editor, I was like, well, you tell me what you think. And he listed everything you think he'd say, Texas, OU, Auburn, Alabama, all these other things. And I kind of looked at him and I said, hey, those are great rivalries, but just candidly, I tell you that we stand apart. And he was a little bit taken aback by that. He thought it was maybe a little bit of a presumptuous statement. I said, let me tell you why I think we stand apart. You show me another game where everyone playing is willing to die for everybody watching, and I'll admit to you that I have company. in that rivalry, and it just kind of stunned him. And that's the way that we feel in that game. We know who we are, both on the Navy side and on the Army side, and when we play Air Force, and we know that we are in a position to sacrifice everything for our nation. And for us, when we play football and we put on that gold helmet at the Naval Academy, it's an opportunity to, one, show how much we care about each other, and then two, earn the right to lead these incredible men and women when we do get commissioned and go into service. So we play a different kind of football there. And I needed that. I needed that brotherhood and that camaraderie and that fraternity and that sense of purpose to kind of challenge me and drive me and hold me to standards that, you know, my father set before me before I lost him. So, you know, it's hard to say that you just played Navy football for me. It's you know, a lot of the best parts of me were born on that football field, on the practice field, and at that stadium. And it was just a very special season of my life that I'm very grateful for. And I'd say you go back to Roger Staubach, and he'd probably tell you the exact same thing. And so, yeah, I'm a Naval Academy football player, and I'm very proud of that.
As you should be. And you you were part of the team that went to the bowl that year.
Yeah, we went to the Aloha Bowl, and it was great. You know, we lost the Army-Navy game, which was brutal. I lost all 4 years in a row, so we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. You know, but we lost the Army-Navy game and went to Hawaii, and Army won the Army-Navy game and went to Shreveport. So it's a debate on who actually won that in the long run. But yeah, we went to Aloha Bowl, and I tried to cover Tony Gonzalez for 4 quarters. And we won 42-38, but they scored 38, which would tell you how good a job I did covering Tony Gonzalez.
So you're one of the few who has had the opportunity to step outside of their commission and actually go play in the professional leagues.
Yeah.
Was that immediately after school, or was that a couple years in?
Well, so it was both. You know, the service academies have what's called an elite athlete program, and it's kind of a fluid program based on the needs of the nation and kind of what's going on at the time. And I've been selected. I was one of 16 guys to get selected for an opportunity to become a Navy SEAL, which was obviously an enormous honor. And at the same time, I was kind of given an opportunity to play in the NFL. So after my senior year at Navy, I got married to my bride and had an opportunity with the Baltimore Ravens. Was with the Baltimore Ravens and made the team. But you know, no one knows that because I played the same position as Ray Lewis, and he's pretty good.
I don't know, never heard of him.
Yeah, you know, I remember being at practice one day going, it might be easier to become a Navy SEAL than to get this out because he was just beginning to be dominant then. This was in '97, and you know, but I had worked really hard and was very humbled for the opportunity to become a SEAL. So I left the NFL, went through SEAL training, and was blessed to make it. And in 1999, I was at Team 5, and the NFL called again. And, you know, this was pre-9/11, and so the opportunity to play in the NFL was intriguing to both myself and a lot of people in the SEAL community. So went back out to the Saints in 99, and just, you know, I'd already kind of breathed that rare air. I kind of walked among lions for a little while at SEAL Team 5, and just, you know, the NFL is spectacular, and that locker room is full of apex predators, and I felt very comfortable in that environment, but there's nothing as inspirational as, you know, being an officer and walking into your command and seeing these incredible men and women who are just the most talented people on the planet, saying the nation means as much to them as it does you, and to be able to be among them. I just was ready to be back to that very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I left again and went back into the SEAL teams, and just had a really great career of just trying to keep up with all these incredible men like Marcus and you know, Morgan, his brother, who you haven't met, and then obviously David Goggins and you know, some of these other guys that you got to see up there on stage.
Yeah.
You know, and Chris Kyle, who's represented just so eminently well by Taya and just who she is and what she's become. Like, who wouldn't want to be around that every day?
Yeah. It's so that, I think your history, your cumulative history of these two things, really is a unique perspective that I want to bring out to people, and we'll get to what you're doing now, because I think that directly relates. That, you know, you've been around these top level performers at a professional sport, which is incredibly hard, to achieve, and then in the same time you're mixing with the absolute elites of the services, and I want to get to what you're doing now, but then I want to ask you after that. I want to ask you, what are the similarities and consistencies you see between these two populations?
Yeah. So yeah, my life, you know, someone was asking me about this the other day, and I said, it's kind of Forrest Gumpian. I kind of have this Forrest Gumpian kind of life. I just put my head down and run hard, and I look up, and I'm in all these neat places surrounded by these amazing people, just trying to keep up with them. And so I've just been in a really neat position to be able to observe elite achievers in multiple different environments, from kind of the boardroom to the battlefield and the ball field, and just to see these absolute consistencies that are there when you're dealing with this kind of person, regardless of what they're doing. And, one of the things I've learned along the way is just, these elite achievers. And I should pause for a half second and tell you that there is a difference between an elite and an elitist. And an elitist is someone who's always filling themselves up. They're very self-serving. They're very, no matter what happens, it's them. It's like these rich kids of LA or whatever these things are. It's just they can't get enough of themselves. And elites are completely different. Elites are always pouring themselves out on everything around them, on the hardest problems around them, on the toughest people around them, because one, they know that's what it takes to have a great nation, and two, they're just not scared. They're not really scared of running out of that good stuff that makes them different than everybody else. And so when I say elite achievers, I'm not talking about elitists. I am talking about elites, men like Marcus and Goggins and some of these other people that you've been around and seen, and in your own community as a law enforcement officer, and then the firefighters and the paramedics. There's just a particular kind of person that gets restless on the X, and the X is, for me, there's this, when you're trying to do anything, only one of five things can happen. It could be bad, it can be average, it can be good, it can be excellent, or it can be elite. And there is a land that exists beyond excellence. I was told once by my chief, he said, "Sir, the reward for excellence is no punishment. I'm not here to be excellent. I'm here to be elite." And there's a difference. And the minute he said that, it was kind of like this lightning bolt moment where I said, I get it. There's this restless person that are, whatever that endeavor is, whether it's being a father and like, hey, I'm an excellent father, but I'm an elite father. And in order to be an elite father, you just got to not rest at excellent. And so I just love being around those kind of people. I find them hard to keep up with, and I find myself better for pursuing that hard thing. And that's just kind of what I continue to do. And it's been the formula for everything up to this point. So I don't know why I would stop doing that.
Sure. Yeah. So I like this idea of the elite versus just the excellent.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those habits then that you've seen either in the locker room or in the team room?
Sure.
What are some of those?
Sure. So what I call those things, so a half second on talent. So for me, I'm not, I jokingly tell people, and I think I even said this at the Reagan Library. I said, I'm an achieving average.
Yes.
I'm not an average achiever. And what I mean by that is I'm an achieving average. I'm not an average achiever. I don't do small things. And to elaborate a little more, what I mean is if you were to aggregate all my skills, you would find me to be a high C or a low B in just about everything, except for looks. Like, I'm a really good looking guy, and it's unfortunate on this podcast that people aren't going to be able to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very handsome. It just is what it is.
Old saying, you have a face for podcasting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's my eternal burden. It just is. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, babe, I'm more than just a piece of meat. I have ideas, I have thoughts. And she rolls her eyes.
She doesn't appreciate it. That's all.
No. She. I don't even think she believes it. And the world would agree with her. But what I mean is, when you look at that spectrum of accomplishment, bad, average, good, excellent, elite, and you look at talent, what I would tell you is talent will get you to excellent. And it might get you to excellent faster than anybody else. But excellence is a place on a map. It's this X that you said you'd go to. So congratulations, now you're there. And I think we can look at the NFL and go, listen, if you're in the NFL, you're excellent, but that doesn't mean anything. The NFL Combine shows us who excellent athletes are, but it tells us nothing about who an elite football player is going to be. The work shows. And so there's this discipline that exists that takes us beyond excellent, and that's what elite achievers have. And what I believe is there's really these 5 pursuit points that all elites have. And those pursuit points are being balanced, being curious, being tribal, always knowing why they're there, and sharing their scars. And so when I talk about someone who's pursuing elite, I'm talking about someone who's firing on all 5 cylinders, all 5 pursuit points. That if they're not balanced, they're trying to be. If they're not curious, they know they need to be. If they're not tribal, it's because they're in between tribes right now, because they know they need to be part of a tribe. The biggest reason I think I made it through training, despite being a fairly average athlete, was because myself and the 11 other guys that made it through from day 1, week 1, just never forgot why we were there. And because we knew why we were there, it didn't matter what we had to do. And then the final thing was all elites are authentic. They're really transparent. They share their scars with other men. And that's one of the things that I love so much about the Patriot Tour, to watch Marcus share his scars, and a man who has many of them. to share them so freely, and Goggins and Pete and Ted and all these other amazing men and women to kind of normalize the room and say, before you go thinking we're not like you, we are like you. This is just the map that we've lived our lives on, and here's what we learned from it. All elites do that. And I think if you're dealing with someone who's an elite achiever, which means they do something really remarkable more than once, then you're going to find those 5 pursuit points inside their kind of personal inventory of tools.
That's awesome. And I have to pause for a second, because I really think that people listening to this kind of show are those seeking that elite achievement.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're curious. That's what, one of the things your listeners on your show, because they're on a show, we know this one thing. They have one of those pursuit points. They are curious. Mm-hmm. They're trying to find that 1% difference, smarter, better, faster, lighter, that can make them be more than just excellent in whatever it is they're trying to do. So your listeners are defining themselves as having one of those pursuit points, which I think is great.
And I see, just the correspondence I get with people, and the show itself is about finding balance. And this is certainly a tribe within our profession that is trying to get better, be better leaders, really optimize their life. And then that why is sometimes a sticking point for people.
Sure.
Or, that's something people.
Well, and why evolves. The why evolves. I mean, the why evolves over time. And one of the ways we talk about it is, I believe you can have a lot of whys, but you got to at least have 2. You got to have your high why, which is why you exist and what defines you as a person. When you die, this is what they say about you when you're gone. And we all die. That's the stats on that are pretty convincing. 101. We're about to celebrate one who died but rose again, and that's my faith, and it's a big part of who and what I am. And then you got to have a big why, which is why you do what you do. Why do you use your time, treasure, and talent the way you do it? And so I think those evolve over time. I think those kind of get refined through the fire of effort and exposure and all these other things. But I think you got to have those 2 whys locked down cold, or the whats are going to take you down.
Yeah. Something that I've recently discovered I came up with a why earlier this year when I started this project, but I found that I kind of needed a how as well. Sure.
Yeah. Well, you do, but if you don't have a why, but you got a how, what are you doing? It's
right.
Like doing donuts in the parking lot. It's like that. If you see the new, it's a tire commercial where the guy goes, if you ever feel like you're just spinning your wheels and this like golden floating hand says, yeah, and you don't know where, and he goes, no, look. And he doesn't have any traction on a tire, so he's just doing donuts. You can have a how, but without a why, you're spending a lot of energy. That's called cardio. And that's why I don't do it.
Yeah. No, so the why, if you can crystallize your why, I think that makes some of these other things. Then you end up seeking out that tribe.
Yeah, sure.
You become curious because you start asking questions about your why.
Yeah.
Sharing your scars, that's a tough thing. I can't imagine. I mean, that was one of the most amazing things about the tour and your speech and everyone's there was those scars were on full display. And it's counterintuitive, I think, to be a leader and be willing to share those things, because there's a big perception that you have to present some sort of idea of invincibility or infallibility, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really counterintuitive. But I've found through this process and through being a supervisor the last couple of years that I get my best work done, or I get my best message across when the first thing I do is share those scars first.
Oh yeah.
It's
I think one of the reasons you saw that on display with us at the Patriot Tour is because we're taught that. We're taught it, and 2, we observe it in our best leaders. There's a level of authenticity that is driven at minimum by inefficiency. It's inefficient to let someone else make your mistake. So if you have no moral and ethical desire to make anyone around you better, and you're just singularly focused on the mission, you're still going to be authentic, because that saves time and saves resources and saves lives. It's just more efficient to not let someone else waste the time you've already wasted. I've never really been inspired and been around those leaders that are authentic because of the economics of it and the efficiency of it. I think that's always an element of it, but it's also kind of morally, it's the only time machine that really works. You can't get your time back, but you can spare someone else the time that you wasted or lost or did whatever. And I think sometimes when you're dealing with a veteran like Marcus and a lot of these other guys who have just done so much more than I ever have, one of the things we all struggle with is the fact that we still have time, and a lot of our friends don't. And many of us think that the men who don't have time are better men than us. And I think just a humble man would always say that and mean it. not in any theatrical way, but that's just the way we felt. We feel like some of the best men we've ever known are guys that didn't come home. And I think redeeming our time and stewarding time and being someone who is willing to save someone of their time, that becomes a priority mission set for us. And I've always been inspired by leaders who do that and men who do that. And leadership is not a rank. Leadership is a verb. It's an action. And that authenticity and transparency is inspirational. And a leader's job is to inspire and motivate. And that's probably one of the most profound tools I've ever seen to inspire, motivate, and encourage. And so it's just, I believe it's fundamental to the leader. And if you don't do it, then I question your leadership. And then two, I would just call you a coward. If you're not willing to share your scars with other men, it's because you're scared to, and by definition, that makes you a coward. So I would always mandate it from a leadership perspective.
I like that a lot. And so much comes from that. You said something in a talk, and I'm going to post it in the show notes. You gave a talk at the Naval Academy. It was at a luncheon or something. And I don't know if this is a phrase you use often or if it was specific to that group, but I heard that, and it was like a light bulb went on in my own head in relation to this audience. And you said, without knowing you, I know something about you.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit for me.
So I would tell you, and it's probably, I don't know if I said that to you. I say it all the time, and I say it all the time because I find myself in the company of people that I intuitively know all the time. So, for instance, how you and I met is you demonstrated curiosity by walking up to me in a pretty business environment, and and you're like, this matters to me, so I'm going to ask this guy this question. So by definition, you demonstrated one of those pursuit points, and because you demonstrated one of those pursuit points that I believe in, that I've kind of invested my life in, I know you. So I don't know your name, I don't know your story, but I know that this matters to you just like it matters to me. And so we have that in common, and that's a starting point for mighty things. And so for me in that room, that environment was really amazing. It was about 400 kids from colleges all across the United States that were coming to a leadership symposium at the Naval Academy. And it was every kind of it wasn't just service academy kids. It was Ivy Leagues. It was big state college. It was liberal arts college. It was law schools, engineering schools. And it was this melting pot of kids that, and I shouldn't even call them kids. I mean, these young men and women who were restless on the X. They were like, okay, I've done excellence. What's that? What's this ridge line over there? How do I get that? And so it's very easy to know you're in a room full of people like you when they're leaning in and they're looking and they're writing stuff down and they're going, hold on, that meant something to me. Like that was kind of a lightning bolt. What does that mean? And so when I say I don't know you, but I know you, that's what I mean. If you go to the YMCA and you decide because you want to play a pickup basketball game, you know something about the other men and women that are there playing pickup basketball. They love basketball. So I know you. And I think a lot of times people are too afraid to allow commonality to exist between them and someone else, because commonality produces conviction and conviction produces action. And that scares people, having to act on someone's behalf that they don't know. But that is the military and law enforcement proposition, that we're willing to sacrifice ourselves for someone we don't know. And so for me, it's very seamless to see that and say it and to mean it when I say it.
I love it. That really struck me.
Good.
And hit me. So we talked about, you said just a minute ago that leadership is not necessarily a position or a rank. What's some advice you have for people who may not necessarily be in that formal rank position of leadership? Because I agree with you. Rank is management. Rank isn't leadership.
Yes, that's correct. Rank is hierarchy. Rank tells you who goes to jail when it goes wrong. That's what it does. So like as an officer, I sign stuff, which means I'm the one that goes to jail if we lose that, boys.
Yeah.
But rank. I mean, leadership is this fluid thing. Like with my daughters and some of their friends, and when I talk to them about leadership, I use games. Games are like this really interesting kind of demonstration of what leadership is. And so everyone plays NCAA or Madden or one of these other things. And if you play Madden, there's this guy on the field that has the gold halo around him. And that's the guy that, for whatever reason, the person playing is says, this guy matters most. Well, that's the leader. That's a leader at the time. So if you look at a tactical environment as an officer in charge, OIC of a platoon, like I am the leader from responsibility perspective, but I'm not the leader from an action perspective, because if it's a sniper-initiated mission, then we all work for snipes until he puts that round down range where it's supposed to go. And then when we hit up on the house and the door's barricaded, then breacher's up, and we all work for the breacher until the breacher gets us in the house. And then we all work for one man until he goes in the house. So leadership is this fluid role that everyone assumes when it all comes down to them. If you look at football, the quarterback is just the most celebrated follower on the field until someone snaps on the ball. Then he's the leader. And then he's only the leader for as long as, he has the ball. Then he either throws it, hands it off, or he runs it. And then, even then, if he's got the ball and that one vital block needs to be made, it's the person who makes that block. So leadership is this fluid crown that kind of floats along with the urgency of the mission or the endeavor. And everybody's got to be willing to wear that crown every once in a while. And if you're not, then you're not playing in life, because there's someone in your life. If there's someone in your life that doesn't depend on you, if no one in your life depends on you for anything at any point during the day, then you're not a leader. You don't have to listen, right? But if you're a quote unquote soccer mom, and I quote that because my wife, she's like, I'm a soccer mom. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I would take 18 guys in downrange in a high stress environment rather than try to get these three girls to their ballet and soccer practice and carpool because there's a particular lane I'm supposed to get in. And there's this one principle that reminds me of the last one. And when they yell at me, it makes me nervous. I mean, listen, respect to the soccer moms. That stuff's hard.
We all have our front lines.
Yeah. Like, give me a denied operational environment. Don't give me soccer carpool. I can't handle that.
So it sounds like, when you say fluid, it sounds like to me, leadership is as much about being able to be a follower.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without question. Knowing how and when to trust someone that's better at something than you are, that's leadership. I mean, that's, I talk to these young officers all the time, and I'm like, let me tell you what, when you go into the admiral's office and you say, hey, sir, I'm the best operator in my platoon, and we're going to crush this target for you, and you ought to give us this mission. A good admiral is going to go, how many rooms are on the target? And you're going to be really proud of yourself. You're going to say, sir, there's 19 rooms on the target. And then a great admiral is going to go, since you're the best in your platoon, I know the one room you're in is going to be great. How about the other 18? Because it's all about the boys. They do the work. And if you walk into the admiral and go, hey, sir, I'm really good at what I do, and my men are fantastic. And there's 19 rooms on this target, and the 18 rooms that my boys are in are going to be handled really well, and I'm going to hold my own too. That inspires confidence in a leader and an admiral in general. So it's really knowing how to find people around you that are better than you and trusting them to be better than you when you need them to. And then, hilltop to hilltop.
All right. So if someone's not in a position of rank leadership, like a sergeant, like myself, or even a corporal or a lieutenant, how, if someone is wanting to develop themselves as a leader, but they don't necessarily have that formal indoctrination by the department, what would you suggest they do, or how should their mindset be?
I would tell you that the demonstration, I love the meritocracy. I'm an Adam Smith free markets guy, and I think no one can argue with performance. And I think when you just relentlessly perform at a really high level over time, what leaders are always doing is looking for, one thing leaders never have enough of is time. And so how does a ranking leader recoup time? What he does and she does is they find people who they don't worry about. Hey, I need you to do that. And then they just move on because they know that's going to be handled. So the more fire and forget you become as an operator or whatever your particular skill is, the more you're going to be seen as a value proposition to those who have no time. And there's a promotion, there's an increase in responsibility, an increase in opportunity that comes with just being really, really good at what you do. And I love how everything kind of reduces down to sports, man. If you just never miss tackles during practice, then in the moment of the game where coach goes, we just can't miss this tackle, they're not going to forget the kid that's never missed a tackle. And that's, honestly, I never started a football game until halfway through my junior season because one guy got kicked off, another guy got hurt, and we were up by 30. And, but my coaches are like, here's what we know about Clint. Clint's going to tackle somebody. That person may not have the ball, but he's going to tackle someone every down. And, and so I think if you're not in a position of ranking leadership or ranking authority, the way to get there is to just be really, really good at what you do every time someone asks you to do it. And inevitably that's going to promote you to a position of higher responsibility. But I'd tell you that, leadership is, everybody talks about wanting to be a leader. Well, leadership's hard. And leadership can be lonely at times, and leadership is burdensome because leaders lack the luxury of being the only one that feels the pain of their mistakes. And you just need to be ready for that because it's real.
Yeah, you just struck on something that was one of my biggest learning lessons, was how isolated you could sometimes be.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And then you said lonely. That's an appropriate word too, where it's not appropriate sometimes to bring this stuff to your troops or to your squad or platoon, but it's also not appropriate to bring it up. So you can only go sideways sometimes for advice or for a comment or a thought, and those people aren't around as much. There's not as many of them, right?
Well, and that's why we got to cultivate balance. So that first pursuit point that we talk about is balance, and balance is having high ground for hard days. Balance is having more in your life that's good than what you're good at, and cultivating those places that you can go, hey, how would you deal with this? And having that kind of. I've always I don't have a father. My father died when I was young, so I've always I watched my father when he was alive before he got sick ask a lot of questions, and I saw a particularly fearlessness in his curiosity. And I would see him because he didn't have a father either. And he would ask older men that he wanted to be like in some slice of their life, not all of their life, but some piece of their life, go, hey, how did you do that? And this kind of personal board of advisors just kind of coalesced around my father. And I saw that be the place that he would go to when leading became hard. And, I've always, by urgency and necessity, kind of done that for myself. To just never be afraid to go up with someone, hey, you're really good at that, and I need to be really good at that. Can you help me understand, what from your experience can play a role in mine? And because it's it doesn't work without that. It's too hard, and isolation just pretty much always fails.
Is that something that you only did, back in the day, or is that something you continue to do? Is to strive and find balance?
Listen, for me, that's as foundational as, putting gas in my car. I mean, just having a personal board of advisors, having a round table of men and women that I respect and admire and want to be like in one piece of their particular life. I consider that standard operating procedure. It's something that, it's nothing that just happens organically. I guess it could. It never has for me. I've had to kind of actually actively seek it out and design it and build it and then pursue it and cultivate it. And that's just, for me, it's just like your physicality. You're not going to accidentally get in shape. You're not going to accidentally become strong. You're not going to accidentally become fast. You're not going to accidentally become injury resistant. Those are the byproducts of effort. And so is that. So is the intangible parts of leadership.
So you just hit on something I think is really interesting, because mentorship is something that I think overall in law enforcement is lacking. And succession planning and that sort of stuff. But mentorship, there's a lot of guys out there that are seeking people and balance like that. A counsel, like you said.
Yeah.
How do you suggest if someone is really purposeful in their intent to be balanced and to grow? How do they seek out those mentors, and how do they approach them?
So what I've tried to do is I have so many questions, and I'm such a curious guy, and I have so many kind of responsibilities and requirements in my life that I could quickly fatigue any one mentor. And so I try to be very positional it's almost like a football team. Like if you ask your linebacker to be a wide receiver, one, he'll hate you because he doesn't like the ball. He hates people with the ball in their hands, but he's probably talented enough to do it. I try to kind of pick a particular Jedi and one facet. So there's a guy, I watch how he loves his kids and his bride, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. That's all I'll talk to them about. And now the reality is that person probably is really capable of some of the other things I have an interest in or desperately need to become good in. But that's just not. I try not to burden that relationship. And what I find is, there's probably 5 or 6 things that I'm really working hard. Being a husband, being a daddy, being an entrepreneur, being a kind of a philanthropic kind of guy. I just find the title holder in each one of those things and just kind of visit with them on it. Because you want to be respectful and a steward of their time as well. And most really good people will give you more time than they can afford because they care. And that induces kind of their own challenges and complexity. So I try to be a real steward of other people's time. And I've always had that level of stewardship and interest very well received. I've always had guys go, man, and then they go, hey, Clint, I've got more time. Do you want to talk about something else? I'll give you a great example. I've known Roger Staubach for 25 years, and I keep waiting for Roger Staubach to not be awesome, and it's not happening. It's very discouraging to me because he just keeps being awesome, like in everything. You're like, oh, I didn't know you're good at that too. You know, he's married to not just his high school sweetheart. He had to one up all of us and be married to his 8th grade sweetheart.
Wow.
And she's awesome. Mary Ann's amazing. And so, but what I found with Roger is I've always tried to be a real steward of his time because I know how giving he is. I know how huge a heart he has. And when I do get to sit down with him, it's always him that goes, hey, I read that you were trying to do this. You want to talk about that too? And of course I do. But he's told me it's okay. He's got a little more time and he'd love to talk about this. That's one of the things I love so much about Marcus, man. Marcus, the demands on Marcus's time are astounding. And I watch when people are very intentional about what they ask him and when they show kind of a surgical level of knowledge going, hey, I'd like to understand more about this one thing. You almost see this exhale come over him. And the same thing with Goggins. Like when you talk to David about running, man, he's got so much knowledge on running. Of course, I've never asked him about running because I don't care. And I did all the running I have to do. I'm not doing it anymore. But when you demonstrate that you're willing to be a steward of someone else's time, you find them to be just because most good people want to share what they've learned along the way. That's one of the ways I've tried to do it.
And I think that's you just brought up something that is a theme that's been throughout every, 20 now episodes or so of this show, is that even cause let me back up. You speak right now. One of your many obligations these days is that you go out and you speak and you give these talks to a variety of different groups.
Yeah.
And you even have your own speakers bureau. So you are acting very much as you are right now in this very moment, acting as a coach or mentor to others, right? Even if it's just for 60 minutes and they never get to talk to you again, that interaction with you is very much in a mentor-coach kind of relationship.
Sure.
And I think it's really cool and really neat and really important to point out that even coaches have coaches.
Oh, yeah. You know? I mean, I would, without question. I mean, I would tell you that General Franks had his own little personal board of advisors. Teddy Roosevelt did. Abraham Lincoln did. You know, when you read the book Council of Rivals about, once you beat all the guys that were running for presidency, you then turn and ask them, like, hey, how do we lead this nation really well? The one thing you said earlier, 60 minutes was something you never have to talk to them again. The way I hear that, just my psychology is I have 60 minutes with a person, I may never get to talk to them again. Mm-hmm. So there's this just kind of sense of urgency that you have with just people in your life and the time that you kind of come in contact with them. And the other thing for me from a speaking perspective is, most of what I'm sharing with other people, almost all of it is kind of something I learned along the way from someone at some time and some endeavor. And sometimes those people aren't with me anymore. And so this is my opportunity to share with you what I learned from this guy who thought you were worth serving and fighting and dying for. And I want to steward that relationship with him so well that you miss him once I get done telling you about what I learned from him, even though you didn't even know him, because I need you to miss him too. And so for me, it's I don't profess to be any kind of expert in anything. What I will tell you is I've been incredibly blessed to be around amazing men and women, and I've learned something from them in the process. And their expectation of me is to share what I've learned from them with you. And so I take it real seriously. I mean, like if you had this ability to positively influence someone, would you want to do that?
Oh yeah. Oh, certainly. And
well, you are. I mean, you create a whole podcast around it.
Well, when we saw you too, the urgency, that's exactly the right way to describe it. Cause, you spoke with that. If you're trying to convey what you just said, that you need me to miss this person as much as you do, and that you may only get those 60 minutes, that's absolutely how it came across. And it's just such a, you were really leaning into that talk and into all the ones that I've seen you do. And that's right. There's an urgency that you've only got 60 minutes with these people. So let's get to it. Right. Let's lean into it. Like I say, you do the speaking now. You do a lot of that. You do a lot of different things right now. But the one thing that I really want to talk about too is carry the load.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important story and a very important mission that you have. But I also see, and since we've spoken before, just the effort that you guys are putting into acknowledging, of course, Veterans Day and Memorial Day, most importantly, but tying in first responders and law enforcement to that as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what brought about carrytheload.org?
Yeah. So I'd love to share with you about carrytheload.org. So when I got out, this was 2004, 2005, and I'd gone through an iteration of Memorial Day and watched it just kind of be this 3-day mattress sale and this car sale, and it was so much more than that to me, because I've lost more than 40 of my friends in training and combat and all these other things, and this is the weekend when we were supposed to slow down and acknowledge that loss, and I just didn't see that many people doing it, and I wasn't okay with that. And on top of that, and then part of me, I was mad at myself, because if I'm being honest, and I try to always be honest, is, I hadn't done Memorial Day really well until I started losing my friends. And so I was mad at myself. I was mad at my nation. And I'm not the kind of guy that can stay mad that long. I got to do something about it, or I got to get over it. And so, I started just doing my own little Memorial Day march on Memorial Day. I'd throw in my pack and I'd hump and just suffer. And, people ask me all the time, why do you like to suffer? I'm like, well, I don't like to suffer. That's not the point. But when I suffer, it reconnects me to time and place when I was with my friends. And because you forge that level of camaraderie and brotherhood almost only through suffering, maybe prolonged periods of time, but always through suffering. And so when I suffer, it reconnects me to them, and I'm with them again, even for a few seconds. And so, in 2011, we did our first Memorial Day march, which was a 20-hour and 11-minute march to restore the true meaning of Memorial Day. And we started it on Sunday because we wanted to use Sunday, the day before Memorial Day, to acknowledge the sacrifices of the other, what I call sacrificial services. So the sacrificial services are really anybody who's willing to lay their life down for someone they don't know. So that's law enforcement, that's firefighters, that's EMT and paramedics, rescue people. And, so we wanted to use Sunday to acknowledge those sacrificial services, and then Monday to properly recognize Memorial Day. In that first year, we had about 500 people come out and do it with us, and it was really amazing. I mean, we had over 100 people do all 20 hours and 11 minutes, and that's not the point. The point isn't to go all 20 hours and 11 minutes. The point is carry more than you had to, further than you think you could, for someone who thought you were worth it, and then share with us about that person who thought you were worth it, because we want to be worth that sacrifice too. And what that turned into is every year we do a what we call the Memorial May Relay, which starts in West Point, the cemetery of West Point, and it walks to Dallas. And every 5 miles, we walk with a family of somebody's lost someone, in law enforcement, military, firefighter, EMT, paramedics. And we just get to walk for 5 miles and listen to a story about the person they miss a whole lot. I thought we in this nation were worth it, and it's amazing. And, we've done that for 4 years now. We've done the Memorial Day March for 5 and the Memorial May National Relay for 4 years. And we've walked all in, kind of collectively. We've walked with, more than 100,000 people. We've given away, this year we gave away more than $1.1 million to existing nonprofits that are taking care every day of problems and challenges that law enforcement, firefighters, rescue, and military personnel have, and their families. And it's just a month, I call it Memorial May, and it's the month we're going to memorialize those who thought we were worth it and recommit ourselves to being worth it throughout the year. And it's an amazing thing. It's meant to say thank you to men like you, men and women like you, who just put on that body armor and that badge every day, and you don't know how the day is going to end, but you do it. And that amazes me. And this is just the way that we can say thank you when we come home.
That's amazing. And it's carrytheload.org, right? For people
who want to carrytheload.org.
And what are your plans for the coming year? Do you have your route
planned? We're in full swing on the coming year. The coming year, we're going to do the East Coast Relay again this year, starting West Point, coming down. We're going to have rallies throughout the United States. You can go to the website, and we're looking at expanding the relay and taking the relay to other places throughout the United States. That's exciting for us to talk about. They don't let me talk about stuff all the time because I'm not a grown up. They're like, don't give the kid the microphone. So the grown ups are in the room making sure we have an amazing plan, and they'll let me know what that is when I'm allowed to talk about it. But I want to use May as an opportunity to get on the road and just have these sacrificial services here. Thank you from a grateful nation. I'm a civilian now, man. And even when I was a SEAL, I didn't do that much. I did more than some, but less than most. And I think, I love celebrating the sacrifices of my special operations brothers, but man, I love closing quickly to the conventional, the straight leg infantry guys that just, stand out there in the middle of the daylight and man their posts and let guys like me sleep during the day so we can work at night. I mean, the type of bravery that requires is stunning to me. I think a law enforcement officer who puts on that body armor, that badge every day and gets out to write a ticket and doesn't know if he's going to be fighting for his life in 5 minutes. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I have the will and endurance and courage to do that on a daily basis. These firefighters, I mean, gosh, they're fighting fire. Like fire doesn't have I guess fire has a playbook. I don't know what it is. And the wildfire fighters, I mean, we don't think about the wildfire fighters till we lose them. And, I think May is just a time where we should slow down and it's a month of celebration in so many ways because people are graduating and they're evolving to the next stage of their lives. And I just don't think you can do that appropriately unless you're slowing down to thank people who got you there. And that's what Carry the Load has become. It's just this month-long thank you, and we will never forget, and we will be worth it kind of recommitment.
Well, once the adults allow you to talk about it, I can't wait to find out how we can help.
Yeah, I would love that, man, and because it's your listenership. That's who we're wanting to say thank you to. It's so funny. You and I are talking about this. I get in these mutual admiration arguments when I'm on the road, and I got these SWAT team guys that are all kitted up, and they walk 5 miles with us, and I'm like, hey, that's really neat that you got kitted up. They're like, yeah, we're on call. I mean, like, I'd have been in shorts and T-shirt, but I might have to go save the world here in a second. And, we get done, and I'm like, thank you. And they're like, no, thank you. And I'm like, no, thank you. And they're like, no, thank you. I'm like, all right, here's the deal. Let's just 1, 2, 3. Let's say thank you at the same time because I got to go. Like, we gotta keep walking. And it's fun to have that with fire guys and EMTs and paramedics. And I think, law enforcement, fire, rescue, which is EMT, paramedic, and rescue, and the military, they're unique risk terrains that incur their own particular stressors and challenges and rigors, and they're worthy of respect in their particular terrain. That's why I don't like saying first responder, because first responder is so inclusive that it doesn't allow me to break out and go, no, there's fire and there's rescue and there's law enforcement, and every one of those men and women have amazing stories that you need to slow down enough to hear, because they all miss someone that they serve next to. And don't you want to hear that? Don't you want to hear about that person? And May is the month where we get to do that, and it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing organization you've got, and we'll make sure that we're involved in supporting.
That's exciting. That's great to hear. I'm excited for that.
So I want a couple more questions if you have just a few minutes.
Sure.
Again, steward of your time, but I like to ask from people any books, any resources that you use on a daily basis that you either give as gifts or that you find a lot of value in.
Yeah, so I would tell you first and foremost, like the Bible is just the foundational doctrine for me. I tell you, even if you're not a Christian and you don't believe in Jesus, and that's a conversation I'd love to have with guys, but at the end of the day, I tell you, at the very minimum, that is one of the most practical books of wisdom that you're ever going to find. And I believe it to be more than that, but at minimum is that. If you did nothing but read a Proverbs a day, every day, you would be stunned by how many times the particular wisdom shared with you on that proverb mattered that day. And then on top of that, I think there's some really spectacular authors out there. I think you got to scratch the fiction bone every once in a while. You gotta, imagination is what invented our aspirations at some point in time. And I think to stay connected to that fiction and stuff. And so for me, I'm just a huge fan of Stephen Pressfield. He wrote Gates of Fire. And, I call him the leadership trilogy: Gates of Fire, the Afghan Campaign, and Virtues of War. And it's about, the unit is Gates of Fire, Thermopylae, and then the Afghan Campaign is about, Alexander's men and what that was like to be Alexander's men. And then Virtues of War is about Alexander the Great and kind of what it was to be him. And I think you extract something from every one of those books. And, one of the things you extract from Virtues of War is just the burden and loneliness of leadership. And Pressfield just brilliantly kind of extracts humanity out of history, and it's fun to read that. Simon Sinek, I think he's a really neat author. I like his. I was talking about kind of what the why behind the what like years ago, and it was fun to see him kind of really explain that. The Start With Why is a good book. I just think there's always great books out there worth reading. I tell you who I'm just kind of this knowledge carnivore. I'm reading books all the time. I just think and let me be clear. When I say I'm reading books, what I mean is I'm listening to them on tape, because I will fall asleep if I start reading a book. So I'm generally listening to the books on tape, which I think should count.
Still counts.
Sure. Still counts. And so yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. Always be reading something. My deal is enjoy something, learn something, remember something. It's kind of the formula that I'm usually reading 3 things at any given time, and not all, which is what situation I'm in today and what part do I need to kind of learn more about or enjoy or relax or all those other things.
Yeah, 2 Pressfield books that are absolute favorites of mine, The Warrior Ethos.
Oh yeah, that's a great book, and it's great because they're short. They're
short. Yeah, they're all short.
You can knock that out quickly.
And then one of his nonfiction books that I think directly speaks and is directly a direct correlate to this idea of the elite achievers is Turning Pro. Have you read that?
Sure, I've got it. I haven't read it yet.
In fact, someone just gave me another copy of it this morning.
Yeah, I'll have to pick that one up. I love reading. Some of the books that are coming out from there's an amazing guy named Travis Mills, one of 5 living quadruple amputees, and his book is coming out, Tough as They Come. I love reading about other guys, because when you read about other guys, what you find them talking about is other guys most of the time. Like if you read Lone Survivor, Marcus isn't talking about it. Marcus is talking about himself to the extent he has to kind of for continuity and like this is what happened. But man, so much of that book is about the other guys. The SEAL book that I love for everyone to read is Fearless, about Adam Brown. Obviously, Chris's book and some of these other things. There's never a shortage of lessons learned. Mike Ritlin wrote a book called Trident, the Canine Warriors, talking about the dogs that we get to use. If you ever want to be reminded of what a good person ought to be like, read about a dog, and that'll kind of get you back to what you're supposed to be. I just don't think there's a shortage of amazing stories out there to partake in.
What is it? There obviously is a lot of books by former SEALs. I'm reading one right now called Extreme Ownership.
Oh yeah, Leif and Jocko.
Yeah, amazing book. Really great insights. Crystallizes a lot of good ideas. I've read Chris Kyle's book and Marcus's book, of course.
Yeah.
And they're obviously very popular. It's a very intriguing and interesting community to the civilian population, and by civilians I also mean law enforcement. We down those books like crazy. Fearless as well. And what is it that you think is? There's kind of an obvious answer to this, I guess, but what is it that about the SEAL community specifically that people are looking to learn some lessons that we don't seem to be getting elsewhere? Does that make sense?
Well, I think there's a particular kind of person, which is kind of the relentless pursuer of elite things, and I think SEALs, we're just in the spotlight right now. I think the 80s we were really looking at special forces and Rambo, because they had Chuck Norris. I mean, we've never had Chuck Norris play a SEAL. That's pretty disappointing. Chuck's amazing. And but I think what you have is this desire to find out how elite people who are achieving elite things think and what their experiences are. And I think this is just kind of the SEAL season in that. But I think I like to read about elite athletes. I think there's just a person who's aspiring to elite things, and that's industry agnostic and endeavor agnostic. And I think just because of some of the recent activities, that we're kind of one of the communities that people are seeing elite achievements come out of. I think, the Ranger battalions and the SF and the PJs and the CCTs and, man, Coast Guard. I love Coast Guard. I think the Coast Guard's amazing. I think if people really knew what the Coast Guard did every day, you'd be stunned and awed by them. They have a boat that can survive being capsized. Like, I just don't want to go on that boat because I don't want to be on a boat with a guy that thinks it's cool to be capsized. Like, I'd rather not have that experience, candidly. This boat can flip and pop back up. I'm like, cool, have fun with that one, man. I'm going to drink some coffee and watch that happen with you. I think it's a particular kind of person. And I think being a SEAL was a particular endeavor for that particular kind of person. And it's just kind of that's the season we're in right now.
Excellent. And one last question. There's a saying out there that, you're the average of the 5 people closest to you, or the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. You kind of touched on this in the mentorship question, but how, if someone's looking to level up that average, how would you suggest they do that?
So for me, the way I kind of envision that is I tell people I'm the right side of an equal sign. And what I say is I'm the right side of an equal sign, and I am all these things to the left. I am these people I'm around. I am this house that I build. I am so all these components that are my life, that equals me. And so if I'm less than I think I should be, I can look to the left and my willingness to have that in the equation, and it's my responsibility. I mean, I'm not a huge. I think one of the things we have to do is just personal accountability is such a big deal. And if you look at what you're dealing with, one of the things I tell people, nothing happened to me, but I happen to me all the time. Like if I could stop happening to me, I'm just trying to happen to me a little bit less every day.
Get out of your own way.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just get out of my own way, my gosh, it'd be amazing. And I'm just trying to happen to me. And it all starts with you because that's the only thing you can do anything about anyway. And so for me to be the right side of an equal sign, it gives me a lot of ownership over the equation. And I guess it's saying the same thing from a math perspective, but if you saw my math grade, you would know that simple math is better for me. But I do believe that you are who you're around, and who you suffer is who you're willing to be. I believe that apathy, appeasement, and accommodation is permission. And so there's people in your life that are doing things that it's like I said there, all I want to be is the kind of guy I want my girls to marry someday. And that's my metric every day. If my girls come home with a guy like that, I'm okay with it. And if I'm not okay with it, then that guy's not going to be in my life. And if he wants to be in my life, then he'll tune himself up or he'll go away. It's pretty simple at that point in time. So. All
right. Clint Bruce, carrytheload.org. Where else can people find you? Are you on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, they want me to start doing more of the mysterious Twitter machine. The Twitter machine scares me. Facebook is just beyond me. I'm on it, but I don't understand it. I refer to everything in the plural. So the Twitters, the Facebooks, and the Googles,
the interwebs,
the interwebs. The great starting point is carrytheload.org, and then you can just kind of rabbit trail to all the other ones from there. And
in the show notes for this, for everyone listening, we'll post some of the videos that we talked about. The little kind of trailer snippet of the Patriot tour. I highly encourage everyone to go see that. You will walk away with a sense of community and shared purpose in about 2 hours. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it. I think there's a lot of great stuff for people to take away from this, myself included. And we'd love to have you back on some other time to dig maybe into one of these.
Yeah, I'd love to be on. Just, one of the things I said at the Patriot Tour, and it's one thing that I'll say to you right now and to your listeners is, hold fast and stay true. And, you remember what that's about. There's these things that last and they prove themselves, and you hold fast to those things. And stay true there's this person you said you wanted to be when the world wasn't trying to rob you of it, and you're going to stay true to that or not. So man, I'd tell you to hold fast and stay true, because that's what I'm going to try to do. And hopefully we'll see each other again down the road.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Sir, thank you very much.
You got it. Have a great day.
All right, to follow Clint on Instagram, it's @carrytheload. His website is carrytheload.org. To follow the Squad Room, it's @the Squad Room on both Instagram and Twitter. Our website is thesquadroom.net. Head over there for show notes and links to all the stuff we talk about in the show. You can text The Squad Room to 44222 to sign up for the mailing list, and please consider leaving a review on iTunes. Again, I want to thank SP Tactical and the iCombat Training System for their support of the show. Check them out at sptactical.com, and if you're going to SHOT, make sure you follow them on social media so you can get a heads up on when their I was going to say parties, but their demos of their iCombat system will take place inside the suite. Anytime you have lead singler whiskey being served, then it's a party. Until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.